Money is supposed to be the great unifier. It crosses borders, bridges, cultures, and creates stability. But in the Star Wars galaxy, money was anything but stable. A currency that worked in one system could be worthless in another. It's the standard. The Empire enforced its own version. The New Republic attempted to rebuild a stable economy, yet none of them ever truly succeeded. From the wealthiest core worlds to the lawless outer rim, no single currency ever managed to unify the galaxy. Some systems barely acknowledged the existence of galactic credits, while others preferred to deal in trade, goods, and under-the-table agreements. It was not just an inconvenience, it was a symptom of something much deeper. A standardized currency is more than just money. It is control, it is trust, it is the foundation of a stable government. And that is where the problem begins. The galaxy has never been stable. War, corruption, and rebellion have torn it apart, time and time again. Every attempt to enforce a single currency has been met with resistance, not just from criminals and warlords, but from entire planets that refuse to be ruled by someone else's economy. The galaxy was too big, too divided, and too unpredictable to ever rely on just one system of money. And then there were the ones who made sure it stayed that way. The banking clan, the crime syndicates, the powerful elites, all of them profited from a fragmented system. The more confusion there was, the more opportunities they had. Why would they ever want a currency they could not manipulate? A stable financial system meant a loss of power. So, they played the game, pulling the strings from the shadows, ensuring the galaxy remained divided. And when money is uncertain, the rich always win. So why didn't the Star Wars galaxy have a standardized currency? In this video, I will explain why a single currency was not possible. A universal currency required stability, trust, and order. And if there is one thing the Star Wars galaxy has proven, it is that those things never last. You would think that in a galaxy as vast as Star Wars, a single currency would make things easier for everyone. But the reality is, when you are dealing with countless systems scattered across the stars, enforcing a universal credit system is nearly impossible. Planets have their own governments, their own economies, and their own way of doing things. The idea that the Republic or the Empire could just slap their own money everywhere and expect people to follow it was nothing more than a dream. Even when the Republic tried to maintain order, it had little real power in the outer rim. Planets like Tatooine did not care about what some politician on Coruscant thought was valuable. Out there, survival mattered more than numbers on a datapad. Credits were useless when food and supplies were what really mattered. That is why people like Watto refused to accept Republic credits, because he knew they were worthless in his part of the galaxy. Even during the Empire's reign, enforcing a single credit system was never truly possible. Sure, they had the Imperial credit, but that was only worth something if you were in the core worlds, or dealing with someone who respected the Empire's rule. The moment you stepped into a system controlled by criminals, warlords, or independent factions, Imperial credits became nothing more than cheap pieces of metal. The Outer Rim and beyond had no interest in being tied to a government they barely even saw. When you look at it from this perspective, it makes sense why no single currency ever truly stuck. The galaxy was just too big and too diverse. Some planets were drowning in wealth, while others were barely scraping by. The rich and powerful had no reason to want a standardized currency. The more complex and fragmented the financial system was, the easier it was for them to manipulate. Banking clans, corporate leaders, and crime syndicates thrived in this chaos. When money is unstable, the people who already have power always win. Look at the banking clan. They were supposed to be neutral, but all they cared about was profit. They played both sides during the Clone Wars, funding both the Republic and the Separatists. Their wealth did not come from having a single currency. It came from controlling multiple ones. They could devalue one credit system while inflating another, making massive amounts of money while everyone else suffered. They had no interest in making things fair for the average person. And then you had the crime lords. The Hutts, Black Sun, and other syndicates thrived in financial instability. When people could not rely on a single form of money, they had to turn to smugglers, back-alley deals, and bribes. This is why you had entire planets that operated on bartering, rare materials, or under-the-table trades. Crime bosses did not want people relying on government-issued credits, because that would give governments more control. Instead, they kept things intentionally unstable. Every time the galaxy tried to settle into a system that worked, war tore it all apart. The Clone Wars, the Galactic Civil War, the conflicts that followed, all of them shattered economic stability. You cannot enforce a single credit system when entire governments are collapsing every few decades. People cannot rely on money that could become worthless overnight. During the Clone Wars, the Republic was already struggling to maintain control. The Separatists had their own economic system, their own trade routes, and their own way of handling money. The idea that either side could enforce a single currency was laughable. Planets switched sides, Trade was disrupted, and the value of money became meaningless in war zones. Stability was impossible. Then came the empire. They had the power, but they ruled through fear, not through trust. The moment the empire fell, the imperial credit lost its value almost immediately. People who had relied on it were left with nothing. Some systems adapted, others collapsed. The new republic tried to establish a stable credit system, but after decades of chaos, most of the galaxy had learned not to trust centralized money. They preferred what they could hold in their hands. That is why war was the ultimate destroyer of a universal currency. No matter how much control a government thought it had, war would always bring instability. People learned not to trust credits that could vanish with the next battle. They relied on things that had value, no matter who was in charge. Gold, spice, raw materials, things that could not be erased by a change in leadership. The Outer Rim was always a place of independence and lawlessness. It did not matter who was in charge in the core worlds. The Outer Rim did things its own way. Republic credits meant nothing there. Imperial credits were seen as a joke, and New Republic credits were barely acknowledged. The Outer Rim survived on its own economy, built on trade, bartering, and whatever people found valuable. A moisture farmer on Tatooine did not care about Coruscant politics. A smuggler on Nar Shaddaa did not rely on government-issued money. People out there lived by their own rules, using what actually worked. That is why you had places where valuable metals, rare goods, and even personal favors were more important than any kind of credit system. Trust mattered more than what currency you carried. When people live on the edge of survival, they do not put faith in a system that can fail them overnight. That is why bounty hunters worked for bounties instead of credits. Why smugglers preferred being paid in raw materials. Why entire planets relied on trade instead of government-issued money. No matter how many times the galaxy tried to impose order, the Outer Rim rejected it. It was too big, too wild, and too independent. Credits were useless when blasters, food, and rare materials were what truly held value. The Outer Rim proved that money meant nothing if you could not enforce it. Even when credits were accepted, they were never truly trusted. People always had backup plans. They had hidden stashes of valuable goods, alternative currencies, and ways to trade that did not rely on the Republic or the Empire. This was because galactic history had proven that credits were temporary. Governments changed, and so did their money. A smuggler would not put his faith in credits that could be worthless in a year. A bounty hunter would not risk his payment being tied to a government that could fall overnight. A trader would rather be paid in something that actually had physical value. This was not paranoia, it was survival. The galaxy had seen too many currencies come and go, too many economic collapses to ever trust one system. Even the New Republic, which tried to create stability, faced this problem. People had already lost faith in centralized money. They had seen what happened when the Empire fell. They knew that just because a credit was valuable today did not mean it would be tomorrow. Trust in money was fragile, and the galaxy had no reason to believe in any one system. That is why the Star Wars galaxy never had a standardized currency. It was not just about practicality, corruption, or war. It was about history. People learned not to trust money that was tied to a government. They relied on what they knew would always hold value. The instability of the past ensured that no currency would ever truly last. At the end of the day, a standardized currency was never going to work in a galaxy as vast and chaotic as this one. The idea sounds good on paper, but reality does not care about ideas. People care about what works. They care about what they can actually use, what they know will not disappear with the next government collapse. Credits were just another failed attempt at control. The galaxy was not a place of unity. It was a place of division, corruption, and survival. Money was no different. Some people clung to credits, others rejected them entirely. Some planets followed the rules, others ignored them. The idea that the entire galaxy would agree on one system of money was never realistic. The powerful did not want it, the war-torn galaxy could not sustain it, and the independent systems never needed it. So the next time you wonder why Republic credits were not accepted everywhere, remember this. Money is only as valuable as the trust people put in it. And in a galaxy that had seen centuries of war, corruption, and collapse, trust was the rarest currency of all. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this breakdown, be sure to subscribe to Critical Analysis Hub for deep dives into the Star Wars movies, and check out Critical Analysis Hub Plus for case studies on Star Wars shows. Also, if you want to rep the fandom in style, check out the bio for awesome Star Wars Legos and Funko Pops. May the Force be with you. I'll see you in the next one.